Hey everyone, welcome to the show tonight. A Friday night show. A few people are here, some trickling in. Brandon, Denise, Scott are here. How you guys doing? Tonight, I've got a video that I'm going to be doing something a little bit different in coming up in the future. And I don't know about a schedule yet. I haven't quite figured that out, but I will probably eventually get there. But what I'm going to do is whenever I record a video, I'm going to go ahead and play it here, do a live stream, and play it before I publish the video. I've done this a couple times where I've played a video during the live stream, but that's usually after it's published. What's going on, Tiger? That's usually after it. Keep growing with Mara. How you doing? But at any rate, that's usually after it's published. So what I'm going to do is sort of premiere the video that I've been working on during the week, and then I'll publish that tomorrow. I've also got an older one that a lot of you may have seen with the supplies that I keep in my truck. And the reason I want to play this older video is because I'm working on a new one that is going to replace this one, because everything, a lot of stuff, probably 80% of the things that I had in my truck during this video are changed out or no longer there. So I'm going to be doing an updated video with what's in my truck, and I wanted to play that video, the older video, tonight for those of you that haven't seen it. Utah Mike, what's going on? Lost my train of thought reading the comments here. But also one more thing as well. If I've got two different YouTube channels now, and I don't talk about it much because I wasn't sure where it was going to go, but I've got the Bug Out Location YouTube channel and the Survivalist Prepper YouTube channel. The Bug Out Location channel is where I'm going to be doing a lot of my stuff. So if you are watching this on Survivalist Prepper, and they're all going to go to Rumble as well, but if you are watching this on Survivalist Prepper, eventually YouTube has bashed that channel so much that it's not even worth doing much over there anymore. So eventually this live stream for the next few weeks is going to be on both channels, but eventually it's going to be on Survivalist Prepper and also, or the Bug Out Location. And also for the chat, it makes it a little bit easier when everybody's in one spot rather than a couple different channels. Now, I do stream this to YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble, but and I get all the comments here on this screen that I can see what everyone's saying, regardless whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble. But that is the plans for the future. The Bug Out Location YouTube channel is going to be the main YouTube channel moving forward, and Survivalist Prepper is just going to sort of be in the background because YouTube hates Survivalist Prepper, basically. So at any rate, what I want to do is I want to play this first video that I just did, and it's coming out tomorrow. And this is 12 of the most important prepping supplies or survival supplies. And to do 12 different areas of preparedness in one video, I really had to whittle this down. And this was the main reason that I wanted to do this live stream, because I want to talk about some of these in a little bit more detail. But if you have 12 of them, it's hard to go into much detail. Maybe in the future, or maybe at the bugoutlocation.net, I will do 12 individual videos that go over each of these supplies. But these really are the important ones for just about any sort of disaster situation, emergency situation that you can think about. If you are just, like I say in this video, if you're just starting out or you're fairly new at this, these are the areas that you should focus on first. And if you've been doing this for a while, just make sure that you've got these checked off your checklist here. But with that, after I play this, I'll get any comments that I get, if anybody's got any questions, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail about each of these, and then we'll play that the supplies that I keep in my truck video. But let's go ahead and play, see if I can pull this up, play this video here first. When it comes to preparedness and surviving any sort of disaster, there is really no end to all the different supplies that we can have. And on top of that, you've got these survival companies that make these new and improved trinkets and gadgets, these things that will, quote unquote, save your life in an SHTF situation. And the truth is, nothing beats a good old-fashioned prepping supplies. Get a ferro rod, a Bic lighter, and a little bit of skill. That is going to take you a lot further than some of these trinkets and gadgets, and they're going to be more reliable. In this video, I'm going to skip all the designer tools and all these gadgets and get down to the fundamental prepping supplies that you will need. Also, I'm going to skip the supplies that are specific to certain disasters. As preppers, we think about the large scale events that are possible, but a lot of the times, a lot of people anyway, forget about the things that are more likely to happen. If you think about disasters in a scale of their severity, the more severe the disaster, the less likely it is to happen. So I'm not going to be talking about supplies you would need for an EMP or supplies you would need to survive a nuclear blast. Those are pretty individualized, and you will need to look into those if that is the case. This is more about the supplies you will need to survive any disaster scenario that you can think of, from a personal doomsday, a job loss, up to natural disasters and things that will last from, just a couple days to a couple months. So with that, the first one I have on this list, and these aren't necessarily in order, but this is a fixed blade knife. And in my opinion, and quite a few others as well in the preparedness community, a good fixed blade knife is the second most important survival tool that you can have. And this is because you can make just about anything you need with a good full tang knife and some skill. Now, this doesn't mean you need the most expensive knife either. You just need a good knife. I have a Rat 5 from the Ontario Knife Company, which the Ontario Knife Company is a spin-off of Essie. And this knife was just over $100. It's got good blade steel. It's a full tang knife, and it's a high quality knife at a reasonable price. Again, this is totally up to you. I do have an article over at Survivalist Prepper that talks about picking a good fixed blade knife, and I'll make sure and leave that link in the description below. Like I said, a fixed blade knife is the second most important tool that you will have in your preparedness supplies, and later on I will go over the most important tool, in my opinion, that you can have. So next we have water filters and water purification. Having a water filter and the ability to clean drinking water could be one of the most important supplies and skills that you have in any sort of SHTF or survival situation. Along with the filters, it's also important to have other ways to purify water that you might come across in a disaster situation. Some of these water purification techniques preppers like to use include using bleach. You've got pool shock, you've got water purification tablets, boiling, a lot of different things that you can do. I recently did a video on 10 ways to purify water if you want to take a look and go a little bit more in depth with this. Now, keep in mind, all these water filters and water purification tablets have their pluses and minuses, and they're not all created equal. Picking the right water filter is really important. Some of these are what you call high country water filters, which will get the Giardia and Cryptosporidium out. Some of these are low country water filters, which are a little bit more expensive. The Berkeys, the filters that will get the chemicals, the heavy metals, the things that you might find in an urban setting. So make sure you're paying attention and you understand what your water filter will do. It's great to have these Sawyer Minis or the Life Straws, but if you are in an urban area, that may not be the best water filter for your situation. So they're low cost enough that you can go ahead and purchase one or two, but make sure you're thinking about the higher quality ones too, if that's what you need. All right, so let's move on to the next one, which is fire starting supplies. Now, this is one, when I pose this question to the group, one that gets mentioned quite a bit. Anytime you see, whether you're on social media or in forums or wherever, you are going to see quite a few people talking about fire starting supplies, and for good reason. When it comes to fire starting supplies, there are hundreds of different ways to get a fire started and hundreds of different things that you need to know and understand to make this process as easy as possible. Some of the fire starting ideas are, starting from the very basic and the best option, which is a Bic lighter. You've got Vaseline soaked cotton balls, you've got char cloth, you've got ferro rods, just a number of different ideas and a number of different things that you can do to learn about fire starting. And staying warm is critical, whether you're talking about an outdoor situation or even your home. Now, inside, there are other tools and supplies you can use that don't require starting a fire, but if you have a fireplace or a wood-burning stove, you're going to need to understand how to get those lit as easily as possible. And the great thing about some of these supplies is you can practice right at home. You can practice in your backyard using some of these different techniques and find the one that works best for you. So now we come to first aid supplies and medications. First aid kits and supplies are an important part of everyday life, as well as being important for preparedness. In many survival situations, medical help might not be available, and we are going to be on our own. Also include things like painkillers and over-the-counter medications. These can help with diarrhea, fever, nausea, and also help with some other common issues. So research a little bit and think about some of the over-the-counter medications that might be useful in a shorter-term disaster situation or a longer-term disaster situation. Now, the force multiplying skills when it comes to first aid is understand what makes up a good first aid kit. Don't just go out and buy a pre-made kit. Actually put one together yourself and get an understanding of what you might need. Watch videos, take first aid classes, understand the different supplies that you'll need and the situations that those will be useful in. Again, learn about bandages and wound dressings and how to use all the supplies that you have. So first aid is one of those, regardless whether you're talking about preparedness or not, just something really important to know and understand. Next, we have self-defense and survival tools. Now, when it comes to these survival tools and self-defense, everyone is different. What you are comfortable using really depends on your situation, your physical ability to defend yourself, and what tools you are comfortable using. Some people do not like guns, and I completely understand that, although I think that is probably the best self-defense tool that you can have. I also think it's important not just to have one sort of self-defense weapon, and that could be yourself as well, but multiple different ways. So different types of knives, even a bat sitting by the front door just in case. Pepper spray, bear spray, things like that that will give you multiple different options depending on the situation. Not all of these survival situations where you may have to defend yourself requires a firearm, so have the other options available as well. And an important aspect of any self-defense weapon, whether you're talking about yourself or some sort of tool, is the ability to be effective with that tool, whether that's yourself, a knife, or a firearm. Make sure and practice and don't overestimate your abilities. And something that, should be talked about quite a bit when you're talking about self-defense is avoiding conflict in the first place. So learning and understanding how to read people, how to avoid confrontations, what you should do, and when it's advisable to walk away, and when that situation comes to the point where you need to actually defend yourself. So that is something, avoiding conflict is probably going to be your best option in an SHTF situation, although sometimes that just isn't feasible and it isn't possible. So the next one here, if you've been into preparedness for any amount of time, is another one just like fire starting that you're going to hear quite a bit about, and that is cordage and wire. This is one of those key survival tools you won't miss until you actually need it. And there are a number of situations where cordage and wire will be useful, whether you're talking about a bug in or bug out situation, or you are at home trying to defend your property. Now, cordage and wire may not in itself be a life-saving survival tool. In conjunction with other supplies, it very well could be. It can be used for fishing and trapping, and just so many other things that you won't even really think about until that time comes when you need to use it. Learning about building survival shelters and field expedient water filters. Learning about camp perimeter security, and this camp perimeter could be your home, tripwires, and things like that. Like I've said a couple times, there are just so many different things that cordage is going to be useful for. So as you learn about these, you'll gain a bigger understanding about why cordage is so important. So next we move on to everyday carry items, and everyone chooses to have different EDC or everyday carry tools depending on their personal situation. But the core tools are very similar. At the very least, I think everyone should have a flashlight, a pocket knife, a Bic lighter, a little bit of extra cash, and a multi-tool in your pockets or in your purse if you're a lady. And that, I think, is the bare minimum. And then you build that out depending on your personal situation, where you travel to on a daily basis, the situations you might run into. I choose not to carry a multi-tool on my belt. Some people do. I think a multi-tool is very important to have somewhere around you, whether that's a bug out bag in your vehicle, but I don't necessarily carry one on my person, but some people do. So it really depends on you and your situation. I also have an article over at survivalprepper.net titled EDC from Head to Toe. Goes into much more detail about this, and I'll leave that in the description below. The next one I have on the list is footwear and socks. And while in the preparedness community, this is pretty much understood, a lot of people sort of take this for granted, especially if you're just getting started in preparedness, because there are just 100,000 different things you have to think about, and taking care of your feet doesn't rank that high on the list. But regardless whether you're talking about bugging out or you're just working around the home, if you can't walk or move, your preparedness plans are shot. So your feet are your engine. Your feet are what is going to make the difference between you getting something done and you not getting anything done. Keeping your feet dry, warm, and healthy is an absolute must in a survival situation. While for most of us, bugging out is sort of a last resort, we don't get to pick when disaster strikes. So if we are at work or we are at school, getting home is a very real possibility. So making sure that you have the right shoes, quality shoes, and comfortable shoes, along with your socks, is going to be paramount in a situation like that. Next, we have survival guides and resources, because let's face it, we can't remember everything. So having some prepping and survival resources available will help us if we can't remember how to tie a knot or apply a bandage or a lot of these different things that might come up in a disaster situation. Now, it's not only important to have these survival supplies, whether they are physical copies or something you've printed out, or even on your cell phone or a hard drive, but it's important to read them beforehand as well. That way, you can reference them in a situation where something like tying a knot or putting a hook on a fishing line, where that comes important, you'll know which book to go to, and it will help you in other areas of preparedness as well. And these guides don't necessarily have to be books that you buy on Amazon either. You can create your own binder with preparedness and survival resources. Like if you find a great website, a great article, you print that off, throw that in a binder. And there are also a bunch of great survival guides on the internet as well. So you can throw those in a binder, throw those on a flash drive. Although if you do keep the digital copy, you're going to need to have a way to access that in a situation where the grid might be down. All right, so moving on to the last couple that we've got here, and this one is cash on hand. While there are some scenarios where cash is basically going to be useless, in most situations it will have some value, especially in the beginning of some sort of event or smaller scale events, whether you're talking about a natural disaster or the beginning stages of a grid down event. Cash will have value initially. Now, the amount of cash that you carry on hand is really up to you, but I suggest make sure it's in smaller bills, because when you need to go buy something and all you have is a $100 bill, you'll either end up overpaying for something or you'll end up buying a whole bunch of other stuff that you really don't need. So smaller denominations is important. If you are bartering, trading, buying, whatever it is, if you have ones, fives, tens, and maybe even 20s, you're going to be better off than having a couple $100 bills in your pocket. Now, like I said, it's up to you how much you have on hand. I personally like to have at least $50 in my wallet in smaller bills, just in case. This could be something where there's just a power outage in your city for a few hours and you need to fill up the gas tank, or you need to buy a little bit from the grocery store on your way home. And it could be something that's much larger scale. So I think these days we don't carry much, if any, cash in our wallets. A lot of people anyway. And I think it's important to just have a little bit just in case. Now, the final one here, which is also the most important one, like I talked about with the fixed blade knife being the second most important tool, and that is your brain and mindset. Without a doubt, this is the most essential survival tool and is more important than any supply on this list. The survival tool you have sitting on your shoulder is going to get you through far more situations than a survival knife or a multi-tool or a ferro rod. It's going to be the determining factor in a lot of these situations, how you navigate different scenarios and how successful you are given any sort of disaster situation. And while your brain and the head on your shoulders is important because this is where you're going to store all that important information, all the different things you learn, it's also important because of the survival mindset. It's as simple as the will to survive. Call it grit, call it faith, call it downright stubbornness. That will to survive, that survival mindset is going to get you much further in these disaster situations than having a well-stocked bug-out bag or anything like that. That survival mindset is going to get you through situations that on paper look like you have no business surviving. But having that sheer will to survive and having all that knowledge and everything that we've talked about today to make the tools that you have even more important, I think that makes your brain, the melon sitting on your shoulders, the most important tool that you can have. So that's it for this list, everyone. It's sort of a long list that encompasses quite a bit. But like I said in the beginning, there are so many more areas of preparedness and different supplies and different things that we need to think about. This is not all encompassing. I do think, however, this is a great starting point and covers the fundamental preparedness supplies that you will need. If there is anything that I forgot on this or something that you want to add, make sure and leave a comment below. And like I said, I've got the links to some of the articles I talked about and anything else relevant in this, I'll make sure and leave in the description below. But if you liked the video today, make sure and hit that like button and make sure and hit the notification icon to get notified whenever we do live streams in the future. All right, so that was it. Just the closing crap. Hit the like button, which you know what you should do right now if you're while you're watching the video. Hit the like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. But like I said, that for those of you that have been prepping for a while, that is probably like going back to kindergarten. It's really something that when I first did the video, it was probably about 30-40 minutes long. Maybe I should have taken a copy of that and put it over at the Bug Out Location website, but I had to whittle it down to make it actually watchable. So there are a lot of areas in there, and there's a lot more detail that goes into each of those areas, which I want to talk about a couple here. But Jammer had mentioned also with the guides and resources over at the Bug Out Location membership website, I do have a whole bunch of resources over there, probably close to 100 and probably close to 100 more that I still need to put over there. So it is if you're just starting out in preparedness, you want to help support the show. If you just want to kind of get more into this, it's definitely a great place, a great community. When you join the Bug Out Location, you also get access to the online mag, which is members.survivalistprepper.net, which is a great group of people and just a fun group to be in. But yeah, there's a lot more detail that goes into all this stuff. If you guys, I'm going to try to pay attention to the comments here. The one cool thing about watching the chat while the video is playing is I can actually pay attention to what everyone's saying on 3 different channels. So that's kind of cool. Now it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Prepper1212 said, whoops, it jumped on me. Hopefully that's the right one. Nope. Archangel said, did you know that there are friends with the Viet? Let me see if I can read this over here. If you know you are friends with Viet, I can't read that. I'm sorry, Archangel. My eyes are terrible and I don't have my glasses on me. But Prepper1212 said, great video, Dale. Thank you. Appreciate that. And like I said in the beginning, I'm going to start doing a little bit more of videos like this and premiere them on a live stream. And I'm going to try, I can't say for sure, but I'm going to try to do them once a week. Scrapper Stacker, see if I can read this one. Thank you for the info. I like your emphasis on learning and practicing skills. Yeah, that is the most important part. Supplies can last a long time, but if skills are not practiced, they can go quickly. Yes, that is a really, really good point, and I tried to emphasize that in there, but again, you got to cut everything down. But that's what I was talking about, and thank you for mentioning that, because you just brought this, you made me remember this. That's what I was talking about a couple times in there. I talked about force multiplying skills, and that is skills, things you learn that makes those supplies that you have even more valuable. I'm going to talk about some fixed blade knives a little bit here, and that's a perfect example, because with a knife, you can get a knife, and everyone knows the basics of what to do with a knife. But if you have those skills like whittling or doing things with that knife, and you're skilled with using that knife is going to be a lot more valuable to you than just going to the store and picking up a knife because Dale said you needed to have one, or some other prepper said you needed to have one. Get those skills. First aid, another great example. You can have all the trauma supplies in the world, but if you don't know how to use a nasal pharyngeal airway, or if you don't know how to apply a tourniquet properly, it's going to be it's a waste of money and a waste of time. So skills and shooting is another one. Skills are definitely important when it comes to all of these basics I just talked about, and that is throughout your preparedness journey, not just starting out. That is getting better and better and better as you go along. So I appreciate that comment. Let me see, my thing's jumping. Scrapper, thank you for that comment. I appreciate that. All right, so like I said, if anybody has anything, if I can, as long as I make sure I can, I see the comment, I will put them up and we'll go over it. But if anybody has anything to add to all that stuff, just leave a comment in there. But don't forget sulfur used to treat wounds before antibiotics, and it works. We don't have sulfur, so, but I get how that would work. Thanks, James. But I wanted to, yes, Joe, absolutely, man. He said people, community, and that is something that I didn't mention in there, but other people. If you are the lone wolf, like Joe said here, don't forget people. Lone wolves don't survive. Yeah, if that is you and you're trying to, and you're preparing and you think you're going to last, you've got enough food and water for 2 years and all that. I suppose it's possible. Anything's possible, but the odds are that food and water is going to be somebody else's in a matter of months. So you really do. It doesn't necessarily mean you need a prepper group, although that would be ideal. But you do need friends, neighbors, family members, those people that can help support, because you can't do everything. You can't go out and scout. You can't have lookouts. You can't defend all areas of your property if you are, that single person trying to protect everything, unless you've got some, like the Doomsday Castle, that show from a long time ago. Unless you got something like that and a hell of a perimeter defense, and with AI and robots these days, who knows? Maybe that will be your prepper community in the near future. Denise said it here. I've never heard of this either. Silver mixed with lard will cure, I can't see that word, infatigo? I don't even know what infatigo is, Denise. Sulfur and lard, yeah. So, silver mixed with lard. Sulfur and lard, okay. But I want to go over... Hey man, sorry I skipped over your comment. Like I said just a minute ago, it's hard for me to go through all of these when I'm trying to do all this all at the same time. So I apologize. It is what it is, though. With the Jammer, okay, I'll get to the knives in 1 second. Jammer had a good comment right here. Jammer said, do you have a plan to unite your neighborhood when the shit hits the fan? And yes, and it's sort of a work, and I think this is different for everybody too. I think it's sort of a work in progress, and it's sort of just, getting to know your neighbors. It's feeling out, if I work from home, so it's not so much employees or employers, but feeling out the people you work with and figuring out who's going to be an asset, kind of labeling everybody basically. Are they going to be an asset? Are they going to be hindrance? Or kind of figure that stuff out. And that way, when and if things do go down, you've got a better idea. You'll never have a great idea, but you'll have a better idea about who's going to help you and who is not. With your neighbors, that I think is the most important part. Joe said, yeah, take over the neighborhood. Yeah, with neighbors, I think that's the most important part because they're right next to you regardless. If things go down, they're there, whether you like it or not. You have people that may come to your door. You have people that may contact you, but your neighbors are going to be there. So getting to know them, and that doesn't mean you have to. I really not the person that likes to go to barbecues and crap like that. But getting to know your neighbors a little bit and at least, offering your hand out and let them know that, hey, this guy's a good guy. He's not that recluse. And, if things go down, he's going to be somebody that I can at least talk to. And then you get an idea about that person. I've talked about Mr. Johnson a bunch of times on my podcast. And he actually, I don't think is around anymore, unfortunately. I think I mentioned this a while back. Much as I dislike the dude, I never wish anything bad on somebody, but he was one of those guys that lived right next door to me, real close to me, and was one of those people, okay, watch out for him if something happens. So just get an idea of your neighbors and get an idea of who might be helpful in a situation. Like I said earlier, ideally, the prepper group is the way to go because you get those really like-minded people. But at the same time, that can go haywire as well. If you get somebody that's in your prepper group that is not all in, or they are at one point and 6 months later they decide to abandon it, what happens when things do go down and that person knows more information about you than you would like them to know? So it's all just a catch-22. It's that operational security, and at the same time, you can't be that lone wolf. So you gotta pick your poison and balance and do what you feel like is correct. So impetigo, a highly contagious strain infection. See, I need Lisa down here, Denise, because she probably is upstairs and she knows exactly what impetigo is. I'm going to have to ask her after this show. Josh said here, petroleum jelly stops bleeding. Just a few things my dad taught me from growing up on the farm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to get to a couple of these knives here. Again, if you have any comments and all that, trying to read comments. If you have anything else you want to elaborate on with all the different areas that I talked about. But I wanted to bring up one thing, though, because I talked about fixed blade knives. And this isn't one that, this isn't, something that you've got to have the biggest, fanciest knife in the world. But I wanted to talk about, I've got a couple examples here. This is the one I mentioned, my Rat 5 knife, which is a really cool knife. I like this knife a lot, and I haven't used it a whole lot, but I have used it. I need to use it more. Maybe I need to buy another one and then use it more, but this is a good example of a full tang knife. This is one piece of steel that goes all the way through the knife. This is really important. The blade quality, the steel quality is important as well, but this is really important because if you're using this a lot and doing a lot with this knife, you want to make sure that's not going to break. A good example of a piece of junk, and this one I got from one of my kids when they were too young to know any better. But this knife right here, this Rambo knife, looks all big and bad, and it's not. Now there are some K-Bar makes. I can't remember who it was. Somebody just posted in the group they got a K-Bar, which looks pretty cool, and it's sort of like this type of knife, the Rambo knife. But if you look on here, this knife has got probably a screw or an Allen wrench head that it doesn't have a full tang. So it basically goes right here, and the rest of this is just where you can put. I don't think I have anything in here now, where you can put a compass, or it had a compass on it, fishing line, things like that. Cool little idea, but this knife I wouldn't trust for crap. And this is a pretty cheap knife. So So the steel is probably terrible too. The only reason really I still have this is because one of my kids gave it to me, and I just can't get rid of it. And then an in-between sort of knife, and they've also got I can't remember what they're called. Really cheap knives, really good knives. If anybody knows what I'm talking about in the chat, let me know. But I bought this knife a long time ago just because it looked cool, and it had a little ferrule rod right here, which it doesn't have anymore. But this one is hard to tell. K-bar is another standard Marine Corps issue, Archangel said. Yeah, K-bars good. K-bars are good knives. And I think, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, Archangel, but most knives, I'll get back to this in a second, most knives, just like any sort of product, will have high-end knives, whether you're talking about Spyderco, Kershaw, what is the Bear Grylls one? Gerber. They're all going to have those high-end models and then the low-end models. So you just have to make sure you know what you're. Look at the blade steel. Like I said, I've got the link in the description below about the picking a survival knife, and it goes through all that stuff. But I wanted to mention one thing with this, the full tang aspect of this. This one, you can't really tell, and I don't know if this one is either. Like I said, I bought this, I think it was like $45 or something a long time ago. And it's a stat gear. I don't even know if they sell them anymore. But you can't really tell if this is full tang or not because of the handle right here. It does have the butt right here, the glass breaker right there. But I don't know if that is, the piece that's, maybe right here, or if that goes all the way through. So just make sure, that's the most important part about a knife, is to make sure you have that full tang. So what else do we want to go over on this? We talked about, I know, I have a question for everyone. I mentioned in there that I don't carry a multi-tool on my belt. And I've talked about this a couple times before. And I know, the females in the chat, probably not, but you guys in the chat, do you guys actually carry a multi-tool? I've got one in my truck, but I don't actually carry one on me. I don't put it on my belt. I don't wear a belt often enough to be able to do that. Now, in my pocket, I do have a knife, a flashlight, a lighter, knife, flashlight, lighter, and the money and all that stuff, but not a multi-tool. Got to go to dinner time, Joe said. All right, Joe, see you later. Kentucky Goat Man, what's going on? He said, I don't carry one. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, I think they're great tools to have, and they are cool. Mandy, what's going on? Mandy's in the chat. She said, I have one of those credit card multi-tool things. Now, like I said in the chat, or in the video earlier, some of those are decent. Some of those are pure junk, but some of those are pretty decent. That little multi-tool, I've got a few of those too. I used to give those out. That might even be where you got that, Mandy, but those little multi-tools could be useful. The credit card knives, I think, are a little bit more useful because you can actually put that in your wallet. And in a dire emergency, you've got that credit card knife that you can open up. I would look right there, but I'll spend 20 minutes trying to find it. But I've got a few of those as well. Scrapper, Leatherman waves are awesome. He says, I carry my Leatherman wave in my pocket every day, and I use it for work all the time. See, that's what my thing is. I would carry it all the time. I'm just not sure I would use it because I have so much stuff in my truck, and I work from home. So I don't do a whole lot of traveling anyway. So everything is sort of right here. So, but like I said, in the EDC section of that video, it's really up to you. You need to tailor your stuff to your situation. If you do travel a lot, then maybe something like that is more important than for somebody like me that doesn't. Or depending on where you work, maybe that is super important. And if you work in an office, maybe having a multi-tool, not all that important. So Denise said here, I carried a credit card knife on an airplane. My son made me leave it with him my son made me leave it with him on the flight back. Yeah. And they actually let you go through security and all that. You damn terrorist, Denise. Now I forgot what I was going to go into earlier now that I went down that rabbit hole, but I was talking about knives, flashlights, EDC. What does Scott have to say here? What's going on, Scott? A custom knife maker in the house. How do I have a cut? Scott said, you know, you have a custom knife maker in the house. How do I not know that? What do you mean by that, Scott? A custom knife maker. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, you know what I want to do? Since we're at 40 minutes here. What I want to do here, let me see if I can pull this up. I want to play this, what I keep in my truck. And this video, shoot, I don't even know how long ago that I made this video, but it was probably 6-7 years ago. Shoot, it's been a long time. That's why I'm going to update this, and I want to play this today just to show you what it was, and that way when I update the video, then you can see the difference. But Jammer said, Jayhawk, what's going on? I made it to Japan with a 3.5 inch knife in my carry-on in 2002. That's like the only weapon that's illegal or legal, or is it even legal in Japan? I don't know what their laws are. At any rate, what I want to do, and I'll jump back into the chat and talk with you guys while I play this video, but this isn't that long. I believe this is about 9-10 minutes. But this is the stuff that I used to keep in my truck, and I'm going to, like I said, revamp this. So let me see if I can get this to the point so you don't have to watch the intro and all that crap. So let's go ahead and play this. I recently had a couple questions about what I keep in my truck and how I do it. So I kind of wanted to show you what I do, and I especially wanted to show you these little plastic bins that I use. And you can't really see it, but they stick under the seats here and tuck away really nice. That way if I've got the kids or something are coming with me, all of this stuff is nice and put away. Now, this is the bare bones. Depending on the situation, depending on who's coming with me or where I'm going, this, you know, it could be added to. I've got a big plastic tote that I use for some camping stuff in the winter time, but this is like the stripped down version. So I want to go through, I'm not going to go through a detailed everything I've got list, but I want to go through a couple of these and show you what I've got. So I'm going to start on this side, and then we'll turn the camera around and I'll show you the stuff over there. But in this plastic bin, and they go right under my seat nice and easy, I've got, first of all, I've got the bug out bag that goes with me everywhere. And in this bin, I'm going to put it here so you can see it. This is just tools. This is all the stuff I might need. So I've got my shovel, I've got a tire hole patch kit, I've got my wrenches, I've got a socket set right there, but I also have these wrenches because anybody who's worked on a car knows that sometimes that socket set just doesn't work. I've got a multimeter here, a couple flashlights, hammer, screwdrivers, Allen wrenches, all the stuff I might need in a situation, in any kind of situation on the road, whether it's a, you know, some sort of disaster situation or not. Next, I've got, let's see if I can close this. Also have my tire iron and stuff over here, but I've also got this first aid kit, and this first aid kit is not your typical, you know, average band-aids and over-the-counter medications and everything. This is more for large-scale type injuries if something were to happen in an accident. And I do have a regular first aid kit here, which I bought this and then repackaged everything in it. It's got the band-aids, it's got the ace wraps and all of that, and also a bug out bag first aid kit, which has some of the basic stuff too. But this one's got like the SAM splint, we've got an Israeli bandage, a blanket, another water filter, some N95 masks, and this little trauma kit that was given to me by a friend in the Apocalypse Facebook group, which has got a cat tourniquet and some gauze rolls and all of that stuff. So a lot of this stuff is for the bigger injuries. I'm not worried too much about, you know, getting a headache. If I do, I've got these things right here to take care of that stuff. I'll repackage this later. And then finally, the last one I've got here is this one, which is just the
the other stuff, basically. I've got a tack bar food ration. I've got some Mountain House. I've got the binoculars. I've got my Titan paracord, some other rope down here. I've got some tie downs right there. Another N95 mask, my jumper cables, flashlight, gloves, you know, all the different stuff, the miscellaneous stuff that I might need. So that's why I like these kind of bins, is because they tuck away nice and tightly. I keep everything organized, and I know where everything's supposed to go. Depending on your car, your situation, they make all sorts of different sizes of these. So you could figure out what works for you. But I like these because it helps me keep everything nice and organized. All right, so now we'll move to this side and I'll show you what we've got. I forgot to mention over there, I've got a tarp that's still in its package, and then a survival blanket, one of the really heavy duty ones, which is basically like a tarp, but it's also got the silver inside that reflects or absorbs the light. Like I said, I've got my bug out bag here too. This also has a tarp in it, but it's the heavier duty Rothco type tarp. I wouldn't probably use that to try to make a shelter, it just wouldn't last, but I do have a tarp in here that would. Like I said, this goes with me everywhere. All of this stuff goes with me everywhere. If I've got all the kids are in my truck at once, the bug out bag takes a back seat to the back of the truck for a while until we get out and then put it back in here. But all of this stuff basically goes with me wherever we go, and the kids got to fit around it. But over here I've got a socket set. I've also got my headphones for when I go to the range, but that's not a big deal. I've got a solar panel set. This is 24 watts. This is too big to fit in my bug out bag. I do have a Goal Zero in here, but this is nice for my ham radio and stuff if I ever need to charge stuff. And I also have this portable station right here, which is not the greatest in the world, but it's got jumper cables on it. I don't know how well those would work. I never tried it, but it also has the AC and DC adapters here. And you go in here and you can plug stuff in, 110 volts. It's got USB, all the cool stuff on it. So it's just good. It always stays in here. I've used it a couple times and never had to really seriously use it. I've never have used the jumper cables though. But anyway, that's the kind of the bare bones of how I keep my truck kind of organized. This thing right here is actually to protect my leather seats for my dog because they have their giant claws. But this could also be used as some sort of bedding too. That's why I kind of like this. So it comes right up. But anyway, that's how I have my truck set up. If you have any comments or any suggestions or anything else, just let me know. But anyway, we'll talk to you next time. Let me stick under the seats here and tuck away.
All right, I gotta shut that off. Okay. Scott was saying in the chat too, and I'm curious, what do other people? What do you have in your truck? There's also nowadays, there's under my seat, I've got a small 2-man tent, a real small Coleman stove. It's nice. And Scott, I'm wondering, do you have an F-150 or an extended cab like that where you can sort of set it up the same way? Yeah, I'm sorry, Scott. Yeah, me too. My dog, he's on his last legs. I thought he was gone a couple weeks ago, and he's pretty close, but he can't even the last couple of years, he couldn't even get into my truck unless I picked him up, and 80 pounds just not happening. So yeah, sorry to hear about that, Scott. But I know I'm getting close to the same type of situation. Archangel had said something in the chat earlier. Let me see if I can pull this up here. I marked this as, he said, can you talk about these big spray cans of bear spray and if they're still legal in the U.S.? And I'll have to, anyone in the chat, as far as their legality, let me know. But I think they are, and I think that bear spray is, it's more potent. I'm not a huge, I don't know all the details about pepper spray and bear spray and all that, but I do believe, in my truck, Jammer said here, in my truck was I'm Batman. I do believe though bear spray is more potent than your typical the other sprays. So Scott said here, yes, bear spray. I have bear spray, long range spray, yeah. And that's I think another benefit to that, other than just regular pepper spray, is the range and the amount that gets kicked out with that. So Yeah, thank you for the comment and thank you for the clarification there, Scott. But with the truck, like I said, I plan on doing something with that in the future, and that is sort of my secondary storage for a lot of stuff, because you just never know when things are going to happen, and it could be just a broken down vehicle, it could be somebody else on the side of the road that's hurt, or it could be EMP, CME, something like that, and hopefully your car still starts at that point. I'm not sure. My F-150, I basically crossing my fingers. I do have an EMP shield in it, but that is one of those two. I've heard both sides with the EMP shields, as far as it's a glorified lightning. I forget what I'm trying to say here. It's not going to work as far as for EMPs. But I've also heard the other side of the argument, and I've actually interviewed the owner of it when they have a military contract, for whatever that's worth, with the military. But I do have one of those, and it's the precaution that I can take, so I decided to take it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And, maybe we just never know. It really depends if there's a CME or EMP. It really depends on the scale of that and how severe it is, as well, as far as what damage it's going to do. So, but most other situations, I have all the bare essentials. It's sort of an extension of my bug out bag, basically. So I have my bug out bag in there, and I've got all the other stuff in there. So depending on what happens and what the situation is, I can move around some pieces, take some pieces out, do what I need to do. And it gives me a little bit more flexibility. That's why I like to keep all that stuff in my truck. And it just makes me feel comfortable, makes me feel better knowing that I've got a whole lot of stuff in there: food, water, first aid supplies, tools, all of that different type of stuff. Sorry, wrong. Great roadkill. Joseph, what's going on, man? Said Glocks make a virtually indestructible blade for a good price. I need to look at that up. I've never thought about looking up Glock for a knife. That would be kind of, I'm gonna have to look at that up. But Batshite Crazy said here, I keep important papers, etc., and ammo in ammo cans, various sizes. They last forever too. Yep, and that's another thing I didn't mention in that first video when I was talking about the important stuff, but emergency documents and papers and things like that are super important as well. If you've got a house fire, you're going to want to be able to protect those in a fireproof safe, a waterproof safe. I know there's some that are actually fireproof and waterproof. They are pretty expensive. There are some that are water resistant, so it's better than nothing. I keep a lot of my documents in a folder, which was a lot cheaper than a safe, but it's a folder that seals with Velcro, and it seals pretty well. And it is more fireproof than it is waterproof. I think just the folding flap on top means that if there's a flood here or something, I'm not holding my breath. But a fire, as long as the fire wasn't directly right there, it would do pretty well. So, and Denise said too, yeah, like I said in the thing too, a couple copies of important papers on a thumb drive. When you have those, you're printing off your guides and things like that, I would definitely have those on a thumb drive as well. I did say in there you need to have a way to access those, and it is fairly easy to do something like that. You could have an old cell phone that's got, as long as it's got enough memory in it, where you could access that. You have got old tablets where you could access that. And those take up so little energy that you could get one of those little power packs, little battery banks that are like 20,000 milliamp hours or 10,000 milliamp hours, and charge up a phone or a tablet enough to get access to those and read those or get those important documents and things like that. So, instead of throwing away your old cell phone or trading it in or whatever, use it to store some of those documents. Get rid of all the apps that you can and free up as much space as you can, and then you can use that to store documents. I think it's important also to have the physical documents. Lisa, I'm more of the digital guy, and Lisa is more of the physical documents type of thing. But there are some that you just don't have a choice, like birth certificates and insurance policies and things like that. Where insurance policies, I'm sure you can get a copy from your insurance company, but it's always good to have those important documents, those papers and things like that as well. I think also, and this is one of those double-edged swords too, but pictures of yourself, your spouse, your children, all of that, having physical copies of those in case there is a search and rescue type situation. Maybe make sure they're newer pictures, make sure they're pictures that are recent, but having those and being able to give that to somebody or make copies or something, that could be super beneficial if you're if there's a situation where somebody is lost and you need to let somebody know who and what they're looking for. So, but at the same time, my prepper brain goes, full bore Mad Max, thinking that, if somebody is ransacking your house and took everything over, they're going to see pictures and things like that and know that it's not just you there, that you've got other family members or, a lot of different things. But I think it is important to have those pictures of everyone. Yeah, you know what? That's a great comment too. And I do have, that's part of my new and improved truck kit is get one of those $60 jump starters. Yeah, I have, Lisa's got one in her car and I have one in my car. Actually, I like mine. Actually, I like hers. I gave her the better one because I'm more concerned about her getting a flat than me. But yeah, they work absolutely fantastic. And also, like I mentioned in that, make sure you have that tire plug kit too. Something super simple, and it's like $15. If you have a flat tire and you don't have a spare, you're SOL. So if you do have those jumper cables, mine will inflate the tires as well. If you do have that in your truck and you do have those plugs and you get a flat tire, you can pump that right up and you'd be on your way to get wherever you need to go. So Archangel has been talking, I forgot to mention this earlier too. Another good publication for military surplus is Bud K. And what Archangel was talking about earlier was, and quite a few different things, but the Army surplus is a great place to get a lot of really good stuff. I was talking about not buying pre-made first aid kits in the video I did, and he was talking about how the Army surplus has some really well-made kits, and that makes a lot of sense. My thing was, if you're going on Amazon, don't get the kits with the little chintzy little Band-Aids and things like that it's just going to be junk you're going to have to throw away. But the Army surplus store, and they are probably far and few between. I'm not even sure where or if one is here in Denver anywhere. I'm sure there are, but and actually that would be kind of a fun field trip just to go and it'd be, like going to the amusement park, the prepper amusement park. It'd be fantastic. But Army surplus is fantastic. Yeah, you want to get stuff that is, it's not the made in China crap you're going to get on Amazon. Some of it may be the older stuff and things like that, but it's going to be quality made stuff. Yeah. So very good point. Thanks, Archangel. A couple more comments, and then I think I'm going to get out of here. What do you have to say here, Denise? I sort of learned that you don't need to put 80 pounds of air in truck tires. Yeah. That sounds a little bit dangerous. I think mine are like 36, so you're like double filling them there. But even if you're, say, because I don't know how long or how many tires I would be able to fill up with my little air compressor and jumper. I'm thinking on my truck, probably 1.5 tires maybe. So not a lot, but it'll work for one tire. But it doesn't necessarily have to be full, all the way maxed out. Even if you're just off the rim a little bit and you just need to get a couple miles, that's going to be better than nothing. So, Jammer said, I keep skipping on me when I'm trying to. Yeah, Jammer said, hard to find Army surplus nowadays. It's hard to find anything nowadays that isn't online. And when you go online, it's hard to find what is the quality and what is not quality because everybody's selling one version or another of every little thing in the world. And that's the thing that bugs me about the trinkets and gadgets as well, is because you just don't know. I like trying them out. I love trying out these trinkets and gadgets and seeing how they work, but none of them go in my bug out bag. None of them go in my truck, and things like that. So, but they are sort of fun and they are cool. Some of I don't know if you guys have seen the Ontario Spax tool, which is like a hatchet. It opens up fire hydrants. It's got a Silcock key on it. It's kind of a cool tool, an all-in-one little survival tool. And I think there's others other than the Ontario Spax tool now. A lot of different kinds, I'm sure. But What did you say here, Jammer? It's funny. I gotta put these up before I can read them. Better than 100 pounds for those that are trying to get 100%. I don't know if I jumped into a conversation or what I did there. Yeah, this is a good comment too, James. Check out the salvage stores. Yeah, but first, the thrift stores and things like that, even dollar stores, they got some stuff there. I'm not a huge fan of the dollar store, but I did actually go get some canned foods and check some things out there, and it's feasible. I just don't know that I'd be going to the dollar store. But thrift stores and first-hand stores or second-hand stores, those are fantastic as well. And it may be something that you go there and you can't find a damn thing. And sometimes you go there and you find some really cool stuff, like a Coleman grill or a tent, or even just utensils that you can throw in a bin and use them for SHTF type situation. But yeah, those are awesome as well. All right. Jammer's talking about air pressure and tires. That's what yeah. See, this is, when I go back and read these comments, it's all going to make sense to me. But when I'm trying to talk and read and think all at the same time, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Denise, one more here, and then I'm going to get out of here. But she said yard sales. Yeah, yard sales is the same type of situation. Yeah, we don't need a lot of the things. Like, there's some things you don't want to skimp on. Like a water filter. You probably want a brand new, it's not used or abused water filter. The knives, maybe the same type of situation. But even at yard sales, if you know what you're looking for as far as knives and tools and things like that, you know what the quality ones are and what aren't, you could find some really good deals. In the group, I think, I can't remember who it was, Alpha or somebody, a couple people have posted that Scott said, focus, bro. Yeah, I know. In the group, though, a couple of people have, and maybe it was Scott that found the solar panels. Was that you, Scott? Got a whole bunch of solar panels for really cheap. Alpha Tango has gotten a few things really cheap. So you can find really good deals that'll help in your preparedness. You've just got to look. It's not all, you've got to buy this on Amazon and that on Amazon and max out your credit cards and all this and that and do it all in the next week. It's things you can do over the course of time. And if you're somebody like me that just doesn't like the people, basically, I don't like people very much, and going to yard sales and going to different stores and things like that gives me anxiety. If you're going for that type of purpose and you see those cool types of things, it makes it a little bit easier. Like I said, the Army Surplus store, if I'm going to look and I'm going to find one out here and go check it out, that is sort of that store you just walk in and you'd be like, all right, this is sweet. I can hang out here. And on top of that, with the Army surplus stores, and I don't know if Archangel brought this up earlier, but the type of people you would meet in an Army surplus store would probably be that type of person that would sort of have the same type of mindset as you. You're probably not going to find many blue hairs or man buns in an Army surplus store. So that could be good. It depends on how often you go and how easily you start friendships and things like that. But that could be something as well. The shooting range, another place where you could, if you go to the same shooting range at the same time and all that, another place where you could meet those people and sort of have that community of people that maybe they're not preppers, but they're a really good shot. And there's somebody that, sees that the country is going by the wayside and rather rapidly. That might be somebody you do want to have in your address book. So, Scott and Jammer said in here, all the camping crap on the clearance right now, all the camping crap is on clearance right now at Walmart. Yeah, it's a good point. Now, there are some, when you say crap, that is very true. There are some things at Walmart that are absolute crap. Some of that Ozark Trail stuff is... maybe it's good to have, but it's not something I would want to depend on. Yeah, man buns. And then Jammer also said clearance aisle at Walmart, 12 by 7.5 amp hour battery for $650 the other day. Wow. And that's not 7.5 amp hours, not huge, but I'll tell you what, when you're talking about 1 amp hour is 1,000 milliamp hours, and a lot of these little battery packs are 1,000, 2,000 milliamp hours. You're talking about 70, whatever the math is on that, 70,000 milliamp hours. So that's a pretty damn cool for 650. Is that what you said? 650. How many of those did you buy? Because I'd have bought a few of those. Archangel right here said, getting to know your local veterans is a hell of a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. One, just the stories you'll get and the knowledge you'll get and the reverence that you'll get from them. But at the same time, they're the knowledge that they can pass on about situations that we talk about and we sort of fantasize about all the time, and they've actually lived through situations like that. Anytime I have an opportunity to talk to a vet, I used to do the show with Brian, who's a ranger, and picking his brain about things, it gives you a different perspective on the real life situations and the things that we talk about and sort of hypothesize about all the time. It really gives you that good perspective on things. So yeah, very good comment. All right. I am going to get out of here today. We are over an hour here now. Like I said in the beginning, if I'm going to try, I'm not going to put anything in stone yet, but I'm going to try to do live streams like this where I play a video, or maybe I do 2 videos a week before they come out, before I publish them on YouTube. I'm going to play them first here in the live stream. That way you don't have to watch the video and then I do the live stream and you got to sit through the video again. And you just get that sneak peek of it as well. And then I'm going to turn these into a podcast. So if you ever do miss the video or you just don't have time to watch the video, I know a lot of people just listen to the podcast. A day or 2 later, I will turn this into an audio podcast and then do the show notes over at survivalistprepper.net, which will have all the links and the video and the podcast and all that good stuff over there. So with that, Denise said, thanks, good show. Thank you, Denise. Appreciate you joining in. Jammer, good show. Thanks, Dale. Envids, good show, Envids. Scott, excuse me, Scott, Archangel, everybody else. There's too many people in here tonight for me to name everybody, but I appreciate you all. Anybody, James, anybody that I pulled up your comments and all that, and even those of you that I didn't, I apologize about that, but I appreciate you all joining in tonight. I don't know, one last thing before I get out of here, I don't know that it's going to be Friday nights, and I don't know that it's not going to be Friday nights. My plan is to try to do it like Monday or Tuesday at 6 o'clock at night, but that may change. Friday nights may be just the night, but it will be at 6 o'clock at night, so you can plan on that. Scrapper, yeah, thank you for joining in tonight. Tiger, you too. Thank you for joining in tonight. But with that, everyone, I am out of here tonight, so take care and prepare, and we will see you next time.